Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ANTICS. I am here with my guest, Sarah O'Brien.
Hello.
Word up.
Everybody.
This is the first attempt of myself trying to do a video. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, good for you. It's a work in progress. Thank you. So Sarah.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing, Cameron?
I'm doing lovely. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
We both just got off rehearsals.
We did just get off of rehearsal for our show, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare, Abridged. I'm the assistant director, and it was directed by Laura E. Woods, who is our theater teacher at school.
Damn straight.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, you have a job.
I do have a job.
You make money at this job.
I do make money at this job.
But it's a job that you love, so the money doesn't even matter.
Honestly, it really doesn't.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I respect that a lot.
Yeah.
So tell me, Sarah, what is your job?
My job, I basically work for a company called Bay Area Children's Theater. It's a children's theater company, so we do different types of classes during the year, and we do camps during the summer and the winter. So I'm very lucky to have this job. I'm one of the only teenagers who have this job, and I'm also one of I want to say 4 people that get actually paid to do this job. So that's pretty cool. That's a minor at least, or that's still in high school.
So what does that mean? What are your responsibilities?
Well, since I am a minor and since I'm still pretty young, I'm the assistant director, which means that I basically just have to assist to the director. So usually I come up with choreography to use for auditions. I come up with choreography for certain songs. I help music teach certain songs, but I don't have initial creative control. But luckily, my directors have always been super nice and super open to my ideas. So I'm really lucky to have worked with people who are open to my ideas. So that's pretty much my job in the classroom.
How long have you had this job?
I've been working for Bay Area Children's Theater since summer of 2018, and then I started doing fall classes in 2018, and then I'm gonna start my my second spring session next week. Actually, we're doing Music Man Kids.
Oh,
so I'm very excited about that.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what has been your favorite season? What play? So seasons, they do multiple shows in a season.
So during spring and fall we do one show, and it's because we do one practice a week for about 3 months and the practice is only an hour and a half since the kids are really small and they don't have a lot of patience. And then during the summer,
the kids don't have patience.
The kids they get distracted very easily, so sometimes you just kind of have to think on your feet for stuff that you have to do to keep them engaged and to make sure they're retaining all the information. And then during the summer I usually get some of the older kids, so during the summer we have the age range of our camps from 8 to 14, so I get all types of different kids at different ability levels and trying new things. And then those summer camps last about 2 weeks long, and they're from 9 to 4 each day. So
that sounds like it's busy.
It's very busy, but you get a lot done because you have so many hours in a day. My only issue is parents will be like, oh, my kid is shy or my kid needs babysitting. Let's go stick him in a theater camp. And it's like, no, that's not what we're going to.
That's like putting your kid with depression into a happy camp.
Exactly.
Go be happy.
Exactly. And it's we can't fix your kid's social anxiety.
Oh,
and
geez.
so it gets worse because then the kid doesn't want to participate.
So then do you have to have conversations with those parents?
Well, it's less, I wouldn't say that, but I would just be I'm just letting you know that we put in our guidelines that your kid has to participate and they have to have a part and they have to speak on stage and all this stuff like that, because it's part of the contract you sign when you sign your kid up for a camp.
I see.
So it becomes an issue, and I've had some pretty angry parents talk to us before. So
didn't you say something about a Russian mom?
Oh my gosh.
Please tell us that story.
Okay.
Nothing to do with that she's Russian.
Nothing to do with the fact that she's Russian.
Let us preface.
Russian people are lovely.
Russian people are great.
I think the reason that she's Russian was mentioned is because she is
They take Russian accent.
The child is first gen, so the parents are from Russia, so they have not the same, I guess it's a bit of a culture shock, I guess. But basically, this girl, she broke her leg about a week before auditions. I have no association with this student. I didn't teach this student or anything like that. This was something my coworker told me. About a week before auditions, she broke her leg, which caused her to be in a wheelchair for the auditions, which means she couldn't do the dance audition as well, like, as other kids, obviously, because she's in a wheelchair. However, like, our company isn't really the kind of company to shy away from disability or anything like that. We have tons of kids of all different walks of life in our classes. But she was in a wheelchair, and she ended up not getting a lead. But the reason that she didn't get the lead is not because she was in a wheelchair, is because she couldn't sing the part or she couldn't act a part. I'm not sure what it was. So the parents find out she didn't get the lead, and they try to sue our company.
Sue?
Based off
like
of...
sue?
Yes, full on tried to sue us, filed a court case, everything. My boss had to go in and, like, talk to them with a lawyer and all this stuff like that. Based off of, I want to say it was, like, discrimination, off of, like, prejudice and all this stuff like that. And it was just... It was a nightmare. Luckily,
oh my God.
like, the strangest thing is that this family is still intertwined with my company, in which their second daughter still does our classes, but the oldest daughter doesn't. It was the craziest thing, like...
Oh my. And it was because the girl wasn't good at singing.
Yeah, she didn't get the lead because she couldn't sing it properly or because she couldn't act it properly. It was not at all because she was in a wheelchair.
So wait, did you have any personal interactions with his mother?
No, I have no clue who this family is. I don't even know their names. Like,
wait, what stories did you hear, though?
I just heard it from, like, my coworker and all this stuff like that.
What did they say? How did it go down?
It pretty much just ended up resolving, considering that, like, that didn't happen. Like, the reason she didn't get the lead is not because she was in a wheelchair. So my boss just, like, basically had to go in and say, like, this is not our intention, this is not what our company stands for, and this is not what we had. And then finally, do you want to pause?
Okay.
I don't remember. What was I talking about?
It got resolved.
Yeah, it got resolved. So, luckily, like, we didn't get sued or anything like that.
That's good.
And then
getting sued is never good.
The family just completely backed off after it. But I just thought that was crazy. And I just really couldn't believe it, honestly. I was just, like, very shocked.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's gnarly, Sarah. So, now that you're directing, assistant directing.
Yes.
Some high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
What do you find are some differences and some similarities with them taking direction?
Differences, with high schoolers, they are already aware of everything that's happening in the show and on stage. There's also, like, a lot of times in the scripts that you get, especially in theater, there's pre-written blocking, which is essentially, blocking is, like, the movement you do on stage while you're saying your lines. And with the teenagers, I can say, okay, now you just move to this side of the stage and you just listen. You don't look at the pre-blocking. With the kids, they'll read everything in the script. They'll make sure they understand what's going on. And they're like, that's not what it says to do in the script. And you're like, I understand that. However, we want you to move this way. Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much the main difference. And also reminding kids their right from their lefts. That gets really difficult sometimes. I generally don't have to do that with teenagers as much, so...
When you're choreographing dancing?
Yes, definitely when I'm doing, like, when I'm choreographing, or especially when I'm telling them to move, like, to a certain side of the stage. Like, if I say, like, move stage right, then that starts to become an issue. But we usually, like, make up games to help remind them. But we don't really get a chance to do that with teenagers because they already know the directions of the stage. And then, other than that, definitely, like, if I tell a teenager to project, they usually will pick up the note, like, right away. And then the next time we run the scene, they project. With kids, they just need a little bit more reminder because they just have this certain way that they're doing it in their head, and they have to make sure that they're doing it right and all this stuff like that. So it's just, like, little nudge of, like, hey, remember to do this. And so, but with teenagers, it's a bit easier.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
What's been your favorite show to direct?
Oh, gosh. I got the chance to do Frozen Jr. last summer.
Oh, snap. Featuring Gavin Pricer?
Gavin Pricer was not in this one, unfortunately.
Then it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, okay.
Don't even talk to me. I'm just kidding. Okay. Go listen to Gavin Pricer's episode.
Yes, please go listen. I love Gavin Pricer.
Gavin Pricer is my fave. But, explain.
I really liked doing Frozen because the number one issue we face with doing Disney shows and there being, like, princesses is sad little girls that they didn't get the princess lead. But with Frozen, there's, like, 3 different princess roles because it's young Anna, young Elsa, middle Anna, middle Elsa, and then big Anna and Elsa. So there were less sad little girls.
Middle?
There's middles. They're just, like, little parts, but still the idea of them getting to play
be a
princess is satisfactory enough. Yes. So we didn't have any sad little girls this time. When I taught Beauty and the Beast, there were so many sad little girls that they didn't get Belle.
Aww.
That was pretty rough. But Frozen was a little bit better. Plus, I just think the music is just set for kids. It's so cute. Like,
I'm so jealous.
You could work for our company, Cameron.
I can?
Yeah, totally. You just have to do a few things, fill out some paperwork, prove that you are involved in theater.
What?
I could get you a job, dude.
Are you kidding me?
No, you could teach some improv camps if you want. We're doing week-long improv camps in San Ramon.
Dog, that sounds like what I want to do.
Okay, well,
I'll talk to you about this after.
Definitely.
But yeah, you just get to just be around, like, all these shows, like, all the time. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. Theater kids are just, they're so happy.
Exactly.
What is your favorite part about working with these kids? Like, do you feel like you have to have a lot of patience with them? Or sorry, that's a separate question.
No, totally. My favorite, I'll answer both questions.
Okay.
My favorite part is getting to see a kid who was really shy on the first day kind of come out of their shell.
Blossom into
like a good performer. Like, I always think of this one girl, her name was Virginia. She was super duper cute. On the first day, she didn't want to talk to anybody. She just kind of hid behind her mom during the parent meeting. And then by the end of the camp, she had a ton of friends. She was, like, being super loud on stage, and she was just, like, really getting into it. And then her mom told us, like, this was her first theater camp. And she loved it, and she wanted to come back next year. And I love, like, getting kids into theater so they just, like, find a passion for it. Like,
that's so cool.
It's so cool.
Because you are curating. You are the first step. You are their initiation.
Exactly.
So if they hate it, then it's your fault.
Oh, thanks, Cameron.
I'm kidding. You'll make them love it regardless.
Exactly. Thank you.
If they don't love it, it's their fault.
Definitely. And then, what was the second question?
If you need a lot of patience with these little kitties, and if you have learned patience through this job.
I definitely have learned patience through this job.
It's a valuable life skill.
You get asked the same question over and over again, no matter how many times you say it. That becomes a little taxing. There's nothing that has, like, pushed me to the limit where I'm like, I'm going to quit my job. But you definitely need patience.
You definitely want to kill some kids sometimes.
No, it's not as much kill some kids. It's like, I always get asked the question, like, do you have any favorites? And it's like, no, I just have kids that I don't like because they're just a pain in the ass, like, in class and all this stuff like that. But it's just kind of like, you need to listen. And if they are just having trouble listening, like, you can't be like, why aren't you listening? Like, you have to be like, oh, it's time for us to be quiet. It's time to turn on our listening ears. Like, just use very much, like, kid gloves, obviously, because they're kids, so.
Is there, like, an age disconnect between, like, the 14-year-olds and the 8-year-olds?
Definitely.
Hardcore?
Yeah. Did you want to continue? I just cut you off.
No, you're good. That was kind of like, I was just going to try to elaborate a little bit, but you get it.
Yeah.
Like, is there, like, issues, or, like, not issues, but, like, a hard time meshing?
It's not as much that, it's...
Because that's the age of a freshman and a second grader.
That's, like, a pretty big thing, but luckily, usually the kids will find, like, groups where they can just kind of, like, hang out, and, like, it's usually kids around their own age. The biggest issue we face is if the older kids are, like, mad at the little kids for not either getting, like, the choreography or something like that. But that has happened, like, I want to say 2 times in all of the camps I've taught where there's older kids. The best is when there's older kids that set an example for the little kids, which is really nice to see, where they're, like, listening and making sure, or they'll help the little kids, which is pretty good. But there's definitely, like, a maturity disconnect, and it's really hard for the 14-year-olds to want to listen to the teachers when we're, like, talking to a bunch of 8-year-olds, and they're like, no, we're going to be in high school next year, like, talk to us like normal human beings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is my job. I have
So
to
you
talk
have
to
to
you.
really, like, you have to have, like, 3 different personalities, pretty much.
Pretty much. It's like that, like, and it gets even worse when I have, like, the little kids. Like, we have a completely separate group that's, like, our K through first
Do
kids.
you always have 2 casts?
No. Usually I have, so the last few summers, I have not been working in San Ramon because the San Ramon team is really big.
Right.
But this year, I'm going to be able to work in San Ramon.
Okay, cool.
San Ramon does the double casts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I usually have 1 cast, like, per day that I'm working. So I have a Tuesday cast and a Thursday cast, and they never mesh because they have different shows. But, though there has been times where I have, like, the little kids, which is only, like, 10 little kids, but that's still a lot when they're all, like, 6 years old and, like, screaming and stuff, so.
So you're responsible for pretty much controlling how many is usually in a cast? Are you usually focusing on the whole cast, or just, like, a specific group of, like, if there's one scene where it's, like, a dance? Or is it always pretty much ensemble, everybody?
Like, our company's pretty much, like, policy is, like, we're not a star building company, we're an ensemble company, which basically means that, like, every kid is in every song, even if it doesn't make sense for, like, their character to be in that song. Like, there's been, like, parts where it's like, we're gonna put the villain in this song, and then the kids are like, why? And I'm like, because
Shut up.
the kids need to be on stage. Because we'll have
So
parents
funny.
that'll be like, I didn't see my kid, and then we'll be like, no, your kid was on stage the entire time. So, yeah, it's pretty much that. I usually deal with casts of about 30, is probably the biggest. And then this summer, when we do the double cast, which is 2 casts at the same time, I'm going to have about 60 kids and a team of 5. So there's
60.
So there's going to be 20 kids.
Are you the big boss? Do you pretty much tell the 5 helpers what to do?
No, I'm not the director. So this time, I'm the choreographer. So I'm, like, just behind the director. So there's the director, the choreographer, the music director, and if we're lucky, we'll have CITs, or counselors in training, which are basically just interns that will be like, can you go move that chair? And then they do it. And it's so messed up, but it's really nice to have that, like.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That makes me think of freaking BoJack Horseman.
What makes you think of that?
Interns. They just, there was, like, a whole episode where, like, all of the assistants went on strike, and then, like, all of Hollywood lit on fire.
Oh my god.
It was a whole thing.
Okay.
But whatever.
Yeah.
What made Frozen so awesome to work on? I think we got a little sidetracked.
No, you're totally fine. Frozen was really fun because it was easy because the kids already know the songs because they're obsessed with it. Of course. And also, my company always tries to incorporate a craft into the show, so it gives the kids some individuality. Like, when I did this one show, all the kids, like, drew their own cookies and all this stuff like that, and they used them during the show. But for Frozen, during the Let It Go scene, to make, like, the snow happen, the kids took, like, paper straws, like silver paper straws, and then put, like, ribbon paper, like, attached at the top of it, and they were, like, these, like, snow flurry type things. So took, like, 2 hours to, like, make those, and the kids were, like, obsessed with them.
Oh,
They're
that's
like,
so
where's
cute.
my thing, and all this stuff like that. And it looked really cool on stage, so.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So because the kids were so into it, that's what made it so, like, awesome.
Yes. The worst is when the kids, like, if they don't understand something that's in the show, like, if it's got, like, mature content or anything like that, that's kind of
Where have you seen that? Like, what type of shows?
This summer I'm teaching Fiddler on the Roof, which deals a lot with, like, anti-Semitism, and it has a lot to do with,
get
like,
this.
What?
That was this Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the Mountain play? Or, like, the Mountain play. It's in San Francisco. It's on, like, Mount Tam.
Okay.
I think they do a play.
Okay.
But basically, my grandparents, like, their first time meeting my dad was at the Mountain play.
Oh, interesting.
And my dad's Jewish, and that was when that came up.
Really?
Yep. At the Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah. That's so interesting, actually. But, yeah, so.
But yes, so what is Fiddler on the Roof about? I forget.
Fiddler on the Roof is.
Actually, I never knew, so.
It's okay. It's literally about so many different things. I'd say the main plot is it's about this family that lives in this really small town where they've just, like, grown up and known everyone. And they're all Jewish in the town. It's got, like, a certain name for it. I'm forgetting what it's called. The town is called Onatoka, And this family, it's got Tevye, which is the lead, which is the guy that sings, like, If I Were a Rich Man, which is probably the most, like, iconic song from the show. He's got 5 daughters, and the 3 daughters, the 3 oldest daughters, they all are to get married soon. Except they have to have the matchmaker come and find them, like, a match, and all 3 of the daughters are like, no, we want to get married for love. So the first daughter tries to get set up with a matchmaker, and then she's like, no, I want to marry this guy who's, like, kind of poor, and the dad's like, no, he's poor, you need someone who's wealthy. And then the second daughter's like, I want to marry a communist, and the dad's like, but he's a communist. I'm serious.
And so they're like, what's a communist?
That's the thing, is that I'm gonna have to explain, like, why is it so bad?
After World War II,
exactly.
Russia decided.
And then, like, the third daughter marries someone who's, like, not Jewish at all, and so the father, like, exiles her from the family and all this stuff like that. And it's just...
Was it Fiddler on the Roof Jr.?
It's Fiddler on the Roof Jr.
Why does that exist?
That's the thing, is that the show is so good, and it's so long, and it's so vocally challenging. Like, there's so many, like, really fast parts or, like, really, like, big parts that I'm like, I don't know if these kids are going to be able to get it.
Is it mostly a musical, or is it, like, a play?
Oh, it's all musical.
All musical.
All musical.
Gotcha.
Barrier Children's Theater is focused on musicals.
Musicals.
Only, like, plays we do is what we call our main stage shows, which is adults performing for kids. Luckily, we get to do, like, things where they'll take...
Wait, do you have something to do with that?
I don't, just because I'm not an adult and I'm not living on my own, and that's like a completely different job.
Okay.
Most of our performers don't teach.
Do they get paid?
They do get paid.
Nice.
It's like it's a pretty good job.
Really?
But the coolest thing is that they take kids' books and then put them on stage. So we
Are they just kids' books, or are they kids' books meant to be plays?
They're kids' books. They're just kids' books, and sometimes
they're just kids' books.
Sometimes they'll just, like, we have our one of our really good writers, Austin. He wrote, like, an entire musical for... Did you ever read the Fly Guy books?
Of course.
So we wrote a Fly Guy musical.
No way.
Yes way.
That's so awesome.
And we just closed Frog and Toad in Berkeley. So that was a whole musical.
Nice. Frog and Toad? What's that one?
That's what Frog and Toad. It is a book series just about this, like, frog and toad that were best friends and deal with all these things, and it was a book series for kids.
I think it sounds familiar.
And
it definitely sounds familiar.
Then we also have, like, a company of this book called Llama Llama Red Pajama that's, like...
Yeah, I know Llama Llama
going on tour, and they're doing a bunch of other places around the country, so that's pretty much... like, the only time where there's, like, adults that are involved in performing and all this stuff like that.
Names.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Sarah, what is your favorite part about your job?
Oh, gosh.
What, like, of course there's a lot. You can say as many things as you want.
Gosh. Oh, sorry, continue.
You're good.
I really like seeing kids get excited to perform. I really like when kids will come up to me and be like, my teacher's coming to my show, my best friend's coming to my show, and I'm so excited for them to, like, come watch me and all this stuff like that. And then, like, and then also, like, just when kids are, like, just really excited to be in, like, dances and all this stuff like that. Like, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this song and all this stuff like that. That makes me happy. Because It's like, oh my gosh, you love to be on stage. Or, like, even this is going to sound egotistical, when kids tell me they like my choreography, they think it's fun. They think dancing is fun. Like, I like hearing that because I think dancing is just such a good outlet for kids.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It is for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Goddamn right.
Or... I have one last thing that I really appreciate about my job.
Okay, let's hear it.
Which is basically we do this thing at the end of the day called an appreciation circle, where we all sit in a circle and they all, like, put their legs out and they give, like, an appreciation to another person in the cast.
I remember
and
that.
And it's like, I appreciate you for
being a good
friend.
We did that after my show in 8th grade, where we did Teenage Nightmare and whatever that other one was, and everybody gave each other compliments. I still have mine.
Aww.
And they're really cool.
We just do, like, but the thing I like about our appreciation circle is that
it's just so sweet.
It's really
just
sweet.
So like heartwarming.
And my favorite is, so the teachers are also like there, and my favorite is when the kids leave the teachers last. So that means that they appreciate each other more than they like appreciate us. And the reason I like that is because I think it's important for kids to bond as a cast in order for them to do successfully and to like
say
work
that
with
again.
each other.
So they do the who last.
So basically, it's like if the kids will give appreciations to each other first before they give one to a teacher. Because sometimes some kids will just be like, oh, I appreciate a teacher, and it's done, so they don't have to, like, socialize as much with other kids. But I'm like, no, I think it's good when you give them to each other before you give them to us. Mm-hmm. Because that shows that you're, like, bonding as a cast, and it also helps with their social skills. And it's just kind of, like, very good to see them appreciate each other.
It's so heartwarming. Just seeing kids just, like... The idea of just working on something, on a project together, like every single person's effort, especially when they're mainly ensemble focused like productions.
Yeah.
The idea of just coming together to like create something is so powerful. I feel for kids just to experience that, because I know that whenever like just being part of something like that, like. It's different than sports. It's really like especially if kids aren't like very sports minded. Mm-hmm. This is literally the perfect like outlet. Like even if you're not like a very outgoing person in like life, you can still just like when you see kids find that in the theater, it's just so heartwarming. I'm really, very jealous of this job. Really I hope that I get a job there.
We'll talk about it.
I think it would be really cool.
Definitely. It's so much fun.
So Sarah, you personally, what do you love about theater?
Oh gosh. I think we were talking about this.
So you say that you love the storytelling. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, what makes theater a better medium of storytelling than a movie?
I mean, gosh, that's such a complicated. That's a good question. Oh my gosh. In theater, I feel like you're just so close to them. You can just see everything that's like going on, and also in movies, you only see what you are shown, in the sense of this camera is on this shot for this specific reason, and it's just a bird, but there's actually someone behind the camera and all this stuff like that. But it's like, I like the fact that you can see everything that's going on, and I also like the fact that everything can be left open to interpretation, which plays a huge part in storytelling. Like, for example, this is just something that I always like to think of when I think about interpretation, is Doubt. It's a play. It was also a movie.
I watch Barry. I know about Doubt.
You know about Doubt, okay.
Do you watch Barry?
I do watch Barry. I love that show.
Barry's great. Bill Hader. Bill Hader kills that show. Good. I love watching him after explaining, like, in the writing room. They're like, yep. Had to do that. And Henry Winkler kills me. The
episode he directed with the little girl who's like the karate chick, that was like literally so cool.
Is that on season 2?
I want to say, did you not get to season 2 yet?
I haven't watched season 2.
You gotta watch it. It's so good.
I will.
Okay, the episode Bill Hader directed is like super good.
Okay.
So keep that in mind.
Doesn't he direct all of it?
There's like a certain one that he directed, I believe, that like I'm thinking of, but he could direct more than that. I'm not really sure, but
Totes my goats.
Yes.
Totes my goats. But Doubt. Sorry.
Back to Doubt. So
the reason I know of what Doubt is because of that chick's line, because she's like, have you seen Doubt? And he's like, no, and she's like. So her line was, have you seen Doubt? And he goes, no. And she's like, it's Meryl Streep. She's a nun protecting little boys from priests abducting them.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like, and he was like, Bill Hader's reaction. It was so funny.
It's so funny.
That's why I know about it, but I don't know anything about it more than that. I always think about that scene when I look at Miss Woods' Doubt poster in Playbill in class. That's all I know about Doubt. Alright, continue. Sorry.
Well, you're totally fine. The reason I bring it up for like interpretation is The story changes based off the actor who plays the main priest. And by that I mean it's never really resolved and you don't know whether he did it or not. So it's completely based off of the actor, whether he like consciously chooses to portray it as like, yes, I did do all these terrible... For those that don't know, Doubt is literally just about like this convent, and the priest has been accused of molesting little boys and molesting like altar boys and stuff like that. And it's like going back to it, basically just like if the actor chooses to portray it as yes he did molest these little boys or no he didn't, it just changes the story completely. And really? It also, in my opinion, it does. That's like really... the words are the same, but the ways that each actors act, and it also depends on whether each character believes if they did it or not, and that's also like an actor's choice. Like there's, oh gosh, I don't know their names, but it's like Amy Adams' character in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like whether she believes it or not, that completely depends on the actor. And like, I just think that's really interesting that the story can change, and I feel like you don't really get that in a movie because you watch the movie once, you understand what each character was going for, you watch the play a million different ways, different companies, different people, It changes the story.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting like that. And it's not the only show that do that. You watch any Shakespeare play and it can change a million different times. Like, especially since you don't know what they're saying half the time. It's all left up into interpretation.
Well, when we read Othello in English, mm-hmm. that was the most attention I had to give to a piece of literature in my life.
Definitely.
And we had the audiobook going too, so we understood diction.
And like tone.
Yeah,
and
and it was still, I was like, what in God? Like I had to, as I was reading, I was looking at like the bottom and I was like, boom, boom, boom. I was like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
But Sarah, I wanted to ask you,
mm-hmm.
How do you feel an audience, because movies obviously don't have an audience when they have a camera,
mm-hmm.
so how do you think an audience, what does that play in the ability to tell a story?
It matters a lot because I always like to think that the audience's energy affects what kind of show you're going to have. So if the audience is like totally like not into it and they're not engaged in the story, then it's going to cause the actors to just like drop and all this stuff like that. I remember I was in this one show and like the first night the audience was so into it, they were loving, all the jokes were hitting and all this stuff like that. Second night, audience was not into it. The actors, like, we were just waiting, like, you know, you have that little moment where you pause after a joke so everyone can laugh, and no one was laughing, and it was just so uncomfortable. So I think it like depends on like how well your performance is gonna go. And, like, also, like, if the audience is believing your story, like...
Is it the audience's fault or the actor's fault?
I mean...
For fucking up the timing.
I don't think it's really anyone to blame. It's just, like, what, like...
Just how it happened.
Who's there and how it happened, pretty much.
And just the uniqueness is what makes it, like...
Exactly. But, yeah, I think the audience plays a pretty big part in it.
So, explain to me a little bit more. Elaborate on why you think, theater plays more of a, or is a better medium to express a story, or to tell your story.
Well, I mean...
So far you explained how, because of the live aspect and because of how there's a script of a play that can be passed around, and because it's live, it's not just one thing, it's a constant evolving piece. Mm-hmm. And whereas a movie stands still as one thing, mm-hmm. right? But that doesn't necessarily answer the question of why it is a better medium to tell a story. So I just want a little bit more clarification on that topic.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily better. I just think it's more organic, mm-hmm. in the sense of like, you shoot a movie once and you're done, and it's just...
There's not like a producer like editing the shots of a play. No, you're not editing
anything. You can't start over. Mm-hmm. And so like, I just think it's also very like, people who are movie stars, they're put up on this like huge pedestal because they're so talented and because they just have this mm-hmm. shot that's gorgeous and all this stuff like that because they're good actors. But like Broadway stars, like, you mess up once, you're out of there. So I gotta like appreciate like...
You mess up once...
well, not like out of there, but it's like if you...
Like mess up acting or mess up in life?
Both, honestly. Like. So
really, you think there's like a higher bar, a higher standard of like how to act in Broadway than like movie stars are kind of like psycho Hollywood people?
Not as much that. It's more just like Broadway, like, if you're not exactly what they're looking for, you don't matter. And, like, the nice
Isn't that the same thing in Hollywood, though?
I mean, in my opinion, it's a little bit different because, like, in Hollywood, you're acting to the camera, and your, like, goal is to be, like, a movie star. In Broadway, your goal could be just to get on stage, which gets really hard because if you're not the best dancer, then, like, you don't get to be in the ensemble. If you're not the best actor, then you don't get to have, like, a small speaking part. If you're not the best singer, then you don't get to play a lead. It's just, like, I feel like the pressure is on so much more, and so I learned to appreciate it a lot. Like, also,
totally.
these people are performing 8 times a week.
Yeah,
it's the same show 8 times a week.
Bro, and guess what? Aaron Burr's gonna cry every time.
Exactly.
Theodosia, right? It's like, what? Like, how do you do that?
And it's, like, really difficult, and there are so many, like, actors, like, screen actors that I've, like, seen interviews where they're just like, this role was so hard because of this, and this, and then I just have to think to myself, I'm like, yes, it seems very difficult for you to portray that on screen, but also, like, this person has to do this 8 times a week, and that's, like, emotionally, like, tolling for them. Like, there's a show on Broadway right now called Slave Play, and it's literally just a play about slavery, and,
It's called Slave Play?
It's called Slave Play.
That doesn't sound very creative.
And it's not meant to be creative.
I guess 12 Years a Slave wasn't very creative.
No, it's not, but
Slave Play, 12 Years a Slave.
Exactly.
How about like
what would you name it, kid?
I'm going through a mental exercise of creating a name for a slave movie. How about
Okay, can I finish my thought while you think?
Yep.
Okay, so the reason I bring it up is because I can't even imagine how emotionally tolling it is to play a slave 8 times a night, or to be a slave owner 8 times a night, and that just must drain everything out of you, because you gotta give 100% on every performance, and, like, how do you just, like, I just can't even imagine how you get into that mindset, like, you know what I mean? Did you come up with that?
Plants, whips, down in the dips.
No, oh my god, no.
There you go. There's your Slave Play.
Okay.
You have your poster. Plants, whips, down in the dips.
Okay. That's an idea.
Okay. Do you think that in Hollywood that there is less passion for the art of acting than in a theater, like the theater community of acting?
Yes, and the only reason I say
that's subjective in a sense, because, like, there are perfect, like, people that are passionate
Definitely.
about, but I'm saying in general.
Yes, I mean, yes, I
just
agree.
To clarify.
I agree with that. So, like, I don't know. I always think of, like, Hugh Jackman, for example, because he's been on Broadway, and he's going to be on Broadway in, like,
Daddy Radcliffe.
3 months. He's gonna be in, like, he's gonna be in Music Man. That's right. But
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Like Harold Hill.
Was he in Les Mis on Broadway?
He was not in Les Mis on Broadway. He was in the movie.
Well, I know that. I just didn't know if he was, like, maybe
on Broadway.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, but
okay.
I always like to think of him because he, like, he's, like, a very passionate actor because he's done both Broadway and film. But I also know a ton of, like, actors that are planning to go to Hollywood that they're like, I just want to be famous. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know people that are like, I just want to be famous. I want to have my name in lights. In theater, everyone that I know that wants to go into professional theater is like, I just want to perform for people. I want to do my best, and I want to show my talent on stage. And I just feel bad, but I just have so much more respect than someone who just wants to be famous. Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, totally. Because, like, when I get it. There's more of a materialist commercialism in Hollywood that you don't get in Broadway. Like, you don't really know the names of Broadway actors.
Yeah.
Which is, like, makes it more pure in a way.
Exactly.
I feel when you get, like, a star, like, the performance and the art is essentially tainted by commercialism. Because they just want the name attached to the film.
Pretty much.
Instead of, like, the talent attached to a production.
It's like how, like, in Scream, they put Drew Barrymore's name all over every poster. They put her as, like, they made it seem, before the movie came out, the first Scream. They made it
Scream.
Yeah. They made it seem like she was the main character, and she dies within the first 10 minutes, and then the rest of the cast is just a bunch of nobodies. But it was just about her name. Because, like, she's Drew Barrymore. She was a big deal at the time. She's still a pretty big deal.
I mean, Santa Clarita Diet got canceled, which I'm still really mad about.
I've never seen it.
Are you serious?
Should I watch
everybody
it?
go watch Santa Clarita. It's really good.
Okay.
I don't pass out recommendations
what's Santa Clarita Diet about?
Oh, get this. Drew Barrymore. And did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No.
What's wrong with you?
I watch a lot of Broadway shows, Cameron.
You like on YouTube or?
That's illegal, and I don't do that.
Sarah's winking. Sarah's winking hardcore.
Illegal. But no, there's like professional recordings of a lot of Broadway musicals. But I do need to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Christ.
I like Quentin Tarantino.
Oscars are coming up, Sarah. What are you doing?
Greta Gerwig got snubbed. I have so little respect for the Oscars. Greta Gerwig is the director of Little Women.
Bro, Sarah, it's because she was a woman.
But that's so upsetting.
I know. It's fucking ridiculous.
Also terrifying.
I don't believe that, but I mean,
but it is because she's
true.
And like that's also, not to be like selfish for a second, but I've been very scared about, because I really want to be a director and I want to go into college for directing, but it's such a man's world when it comes to directing specifically.
That sucks.
Because it's the idea of like that, I guess women aren't strong enough and all this stuff like that, and I'm just kind of like, no, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna be a director. Like, I know what I want, I have ideas and I want to share them, and so I want to be a head director one day. That's my goal. You
were in social justice this morning, right?
I was.
Wasn't that a fun conversation we had this morning?
Toxic masculinity.
I loved my class's conversation. We had a great conversation. Sarah and I are both in English with emphasis on social justice, but we have it in different periods. And today the topic was defining masculinity and like asking if masculinity in and of itself is toxic.
What did you say for that?
So our class had a very dynamic discussion. I was really, really very involved in it, and it was very, very interesting to hear. And so a lot of what people were talking about was just like how it's a man-made concept. So obviously it was made for men. Like it was a man-made concept that men made. So obviously masculinity is like, the whole idea is just to oppress women, right?
Yes.
But then like if you look at it in like when we thought about if masculinity in and of itself is toxic, the general consensus was that in and of itself masculinity is not toxic, but the perpetuating of it, and in my opinion the concept of putting people into boxes, putting men into boxes of masculinity and women into boxes of masculinity, that is where the toxicity stems from.
Definitely.
And so as a culture, the concept of masculinity and femininity is evolving. So now there's more of a spectrum, and there's still like, people are still like expected to identify with some traits of their gender, but as we progress, there's becoming more of an acceptable. It's becoming more acceptable to cross over. And so that's kind of what we were talking about a lot. But then Inaya's main point was that after we talked for like straight up like 30 minutes, Inaya said, a thing, when in reality we should just be talking about how it shouldn't exist. And like, if somebody just wants to identify with a trait, that should just be who they are. That should not be identified. That should not be classified to a gender.
Interesting.
So but then we kind of like, that was a very interesting perspective to hear.
I agree.
But like, the fact of the matter is, there's cultural there's cultural connotations that have created these things, so they're so deeply ingrained into our minds. And even because of like, if you want to look at it from like a scientific term, there is science that like a person that is transgender, like there is a scientific reason as to why they are transgender. It is because they were born with like more enough testosterone to make them a man, but like too much estrogen, so they actually feel they're a woman. Like, so it's a very complicated issue, and I just thought we had a really good discussion. What do you think?
I totally So sorry, I'm texting my mom
Oh,
right
you're
now.
good, you're good.
I totally agree with that. I mean, like, our conversation was totally different. What I said was like, oh, what?
It's all good.
Okay, I was very confused.
Yeah, you're good, you're good. It does that sometimes.
Oh, that's fun. What happened with our class was, like, so crazy and different was, I don't think masculinity is inherently bad. I don't think it's bad to be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it becomes bad, and same thing with femininity. I think they're pretty much just the same thing where it's like these boxes, like you were saying, that we put people in because it's easier, because it's how we are able to identify people, because it doesn't have to be confusing, but like, I don't think it becomes bad until you risk your interests or your mental health. In the idea of
that was another point that
boys can't wear pink, boys don't cry. I think that's toxic masculinity.
That is toxic, absolutely.
If you as a person, doesn't matter what gender you identify as, want to exhibit masculine quote-unquote features, I don't have an issue with that. You're wanting to be masculine. That's totally fine. If you're going to tell a kid not to cry because he's a boy and he's, like, not allowed to, then I have an issue with that. Like, your kid is, like, allowed to express their emotions.
Totally.
Definitely.
Alrighty, Sarah.
Alrighty.
Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I would love to have you on again. I think that if we talk about, next time we can talk about, like, acting. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you one question.
Okay, what's up?
How come, so for this show, that we're doing right now, did you choose to not be an actor?
No, basically, my company that I work for, we not only have regular children's classes, we also have this advanced program, which is any age, like 8 to 18 and all this stuff like that. And I also work for that program, and the same weekend that we're having our Linnea Festival is also the same as, like, they're having a different festival that I'm needed at as, like, a worker for that program. So I decided to give up Linnea Festival to be able to go to this program, but this program also lets me, like, I can apply for a bunch of internships, I can talk to...
Like, in real life.
In real life.
Like, real life shit.
I know.
I mean, stuff.
Exactly. Haha. So, it's gonna be really interesting and really fun, and I think you guys are gonna do amazing at Linnea.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, Sarah, would you like any closing words? I hope this didn't cut it off.
Yeah, me neither. If you're not interested in theater, I would definitely recommend Interested in Theater.